was going to be a review for the 2019 movie Hellboy with David Harbour, Milla Jovovich, and McShane. So directed by Neil Marshall. So obviously this is not the planned Hellboy 3, which never was made, unfortunately, by Guillermo del Toro. I like the first Hellboy. I think it's a solid movie. I think the second one's really where Del Toro hit his stride. Had a bigger budget. I like the plot more. I like the villain in the movie a lot. So I finally watched this. I've never really read the comic books, a little bit, but not really. Some of my friends are big fans of the comic books, but I haven't read them, so I don't really know. But I watched this. I thought it was okay. I mean, it got terrible reviews when it came out. It has like a 19% of Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think that's fair, really. So I think this movie had an uphill battle because a lot of people just wanted Del Toro to make 3. A lot of the critics did, which I understand, which I agree with, but he never did. And apparently he could, he was working on it after in like 2013, 14. But then he started doing other projects, and because he takes on a lot of projects, so I don't know, it's never made. And Ron Perlman now is too old, probably. So they ended up making this. It's a total reboot. David Harbour's Hellboy now, not Ron Perlman. I'm not a massive David Harbour fan, but I liked his Violent Night movie he made in 2022. So I liked that. I thought he was okay as Hellboy. Some people really did not like him as Hellboy. Thought he was okay. I mean, he's kind of a weird looking guy. I can see why they cast him as it. He's all right. Heard some people complain he's really whiny. But Ron Perlman was kind of whiny in the first Hellboy, especially the first one. But even in 2, so I don't know, I just figure that's like kind of the character. I mean, he's supposed to be almost like a teenager, right? Like he ages really slow. He's kind of has daddy issues, like with his father, or his adopted father, basically, who was John Hurt. Now it's Ian McShane. So I liked Ian McShane in this. I thought David Harbour was fine. I didn't think he was amazing. I think Ron Perlman's better. Those 2 Hellboy movies are better. I mean, I think they are better. Del Toro's a better director, but you know what? Neil Marshall's a pretty good director too. So at least they didn't just hire anyone to make it. I know Neil Marshall has complained that apparently they took the movie away from him at the end and they changed a bunch of stuff. I think some of the music they totally changed, because this has a lot of like rock music and stuff in it. I think he was saying that they changed that. They took the editing away from him, so he wasn't very happy with the final movie. I saw an interview like a year and a half ago from the Critical Drinker, where he interviews him, and he says, like, they don't really talk about the movie, but then at the end or something, he's like, "So what's up with that Hellboy movie you made?" And he's like, "Oh, that was terrible. They took it away from me and all this stuff." Okay, I mean, I'll never know. I'll never see his original vision for the movie, but I thought it was okay. I think it was entertaining enough. It's not a great movie, but I did enjoy it. So, there's not many movies like this. It's interesting concept because it's a comic book movie, but it's also a horror movie that's based in this one. It's based. There's a lot of Arthurian legend in it. I really like that. I'm really into the Arthurian legend. Like Nimue, Excalibur's in it. King Arthur's dead corpse is in it. He's in the very beginning of the movie for a few, like a minute. But yeah, I found the plot in this interesting. Now, unfortunately, there's some bad CGI in this movie. I mean, the first two movies have it too, but I could forgive it more because it's older. But also, Del Toro made Del Toro loves practical effects. The first two movies that he did have some great practical effects. This has some, but there's a lot of mediocre CGI. There's a lot of bad CGI, like this giant pig man who he fights throughout the movie. It's just pretty bad. Looks terrible. You know, uh, and then one of the girls, she's like a spirit medium, and when the spirits talk through her, for some reason it like comes out of her mouth like a dead corpse. I don't know. Maybe is that in the comic book? I don't know. Thought that was weird, but it just looks terrible. It's like this terrible CGI of people talking to Hellboy. Just thought that looked absolutely terrible. One of the guys turns into this like part leopard, part cat thing, but he just turns into bad CGI. So that was kind of bad, you know. But yeah, overall, I liked Milla Jovovich in it. Man, she still looks really very beautiful woman. um, but she's really good in it. I like her as Nimue. Um, I like all this stuff with the Arthurian legend. And now spoilers, and probably no one cares. This movie flopped. It got terrible reviews. I think even people that liked it are like me. It's not great, but I thought it was okay. I like how Hellboy is the distant relative of King Arthur, and King Arthur's daughter had like a fling with like a demon, and then they went to hell for their marriage, and then they created Hellboy, and then he came to Earth like in 1943 or whatever it was. So he is a descendant of King Arthur, therefore he can use King Arthur's sword Excalibur. That's in the movie. Not really used much, unfortunately, but it's kind of like a plot point that if he takes it up and joins Nimue, then they can rule and destroy the world. Um, but yeah, this is directed by Neil Marshall. I'm a big fan of The Descent. Amazing horror movie. And it's about these girls who are rock climbers, and they get trapped in this underground passage with these creatures that they fight. Really good, simple horror movie. Just very well done. The tension's very good. He also did this movie, Dog Soldiers. I don't know if that's going to show. But anyways, this is the Blu-ray of it. Big fan of this movie. And this movie has werewolves in it. And this has like a giant pig man, but it's terrible CGI. So it's just like, I wish he kind of had more of the practical effects you see in Dog Soldiers and The Descent. But they have it some places in this movie, but a lot of it's just either mediocre to bad CGI. So that's unfortunate. But if you haven't seen The Descent or Dog Soldiers, definitely check them out. Those are really good horror movies. Better than this movie, I'd say. But he also did some really good episodes of Game of Thrones too, Neil Marshall. But yeah, I know he's not happy with this movie, and the studio and him had some big falling out because of it. But overall, I thought, a mediocre, decent movie. Not amazing. Should have got Hellboy 3 with Del Toro and Ron Perlman, but unfortunately, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But It says in mid-2012, Ron Perlman once again endured the 4-hour makeup routine required to transform into Hellboy to fill the Make-A-Wish request of a 6-year-old boy named Zachary who had leukemia. Creature effects, house, spectral motion. They worked on the previous Hellboy. Applied Perlman's makeup and later also made up Zachary as Hellboy as well, so that Zachary could spend the day hanging out with his favorite superhero. Del Toro was so touched by this event that it inspired him to restart production on the shelved Hellboy 3. However, after several years without progress, because Del Toro was working on other projects, the studio had approached Neil Marshall to helm the next film. And decided that it would be a reboot to set it apart from Del Toro. Del Toro's Hellboy 3 was subsequently announced to be canceled. So, yeah. I don't know. It sounds like it was kind of on Del Toro that he didn't do it. You know, that's nice that he dressed up for a kid with leukemia. I mean, that's pretty sad, but yeah, I wish we saw the movie, Hellboy 3, but never gonna happen, really, I think. And I think I've heard that he wanted like a much bigger budget because he's like, it's the third movie. We need to up it even more, have a grand finale, which I would have been cool, but these movies have never made that much money. So, you can't really blame the studio for being like, they're probably like, we'll give you what you had for 2 plus a little bit more, but that's it. But, oh well. So Mike Mignola, who I think is one of the creators, takes a more direct involvement in the production of the film than he did on Del Toro's. According to him, since a new director would helm the reboot, the idea with this one was to downplay the superhero elements of the film, strip out the Del Toro-isms, and stay closer to the darker tone of the graphic novels, make it a much more horror-oriented entry into the franchise. David Harbour described his portrayal as Hellboy as a teenager version of Ron Perlman's Hellboy. He's younger and tougher and really struggling with the ideas of whether or not he's a good person. Yeah. I don't know if he's tougher, but he does whine more, but that's in the first movie though, but yeah, he does. A follow-up to Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, had long been in development, mostly due to a projected budget of $120 million, whereas the first 2 movies had only seen modest returns, and because director Del Toro was unavailable for a long time. Following the success of Deadpool had in getting the movie through social media, Ron Perlman tweeted a proposal that if Hellboy 3 started trending, a third Hellboy film might finally get funds to be made. Del Toro still followed suit, but by the time it was finally ready to discuss the project, the studio already decided to make this completely unrelated reboot. Mike Mignola and Guillermo del Toro had a disagreement about the third film, which ended their friendship. Okay, Doug Jones, who played Abe Sapien in Hellboy 1 and 2, was offered a cameo, but was unable to participate due to commitment to Star Trek Discovery. Milla Jovovich stated that she foresaw the brutal reviews, but remained optimistic that the film would eventually become a cult classic in the years to come. Well, I don't know about that, but I thought it was okay. I mean, I'd probably give it like 6.5 out of 10, probably something like that. Maybe I would go up to a 7 if the effects were a little better. But that's probably how I'd rank it. Probably a 7, but it's 6.5 because the effects. But in March 2020, David Harbour touched upon the reason behind the failure of this film. He states, "I think it failed before we began shooting because I think that people didn't want us to make the movie, and for some reason there was like a big Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman created this iconic thing that we thought could be reinvented, and then they certainly the loudness of the internet was like, we don't want you to touch this, and then we made a movie that I think is fun. I think had its problems, but it was a fun movie. And then people were just very, very against it. that's the people's right, but I learned my lesson in a lot of different ways. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. Um, you know, like I wonder what Del Toro was gonna do for the plot. So I wonder if maybe he was gonna touch on some of the things this movie touched on, but um, it's too bad. So Ian McShane takes over the role of Dr. Broom from John Hurt. Well, so they knew each other. They've been friends since the 60s. So the movie's title was Hellboy, the Blood Queen initially, before reverting to simply Hellboy. The storyline draws from 4 comic books in the Hellboy series: Darkness Calls, The Wild Hunt, The Storm and the Fury, and Hellboy in Mexico, which is like the first 10 minutes of the movie. He's in Mexico. I think Tijuana. But yeah, the makeup they use on Hellboy, I mean, I think it's all right. I think it looks better on Perlman, though. I think that they did a better job, but I thought it was okay. It's just kind of my review for this movie. I just think it's okay. It didn't deserve the. I mean, what is it? 19%, 17% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, I just think that's kind of crazy. The film was not screened for critics before release. That's never a good sign. Yeah, so they had little to no faith in the movie. I remember one of the trailers was pretty good, but other than that, they weren't that good. So they didn't even really try. But yeah, that's about it. I don't know if you're a fan of the first two, at least check it out. You know, I think some of the plot's cool. Some of the performances are decent. I'd say like Milla Jovovich, David Harbour, Ian McShane. So, but yeah. Let me know below if you're a fan of Hellboy, what you think of this movie, and like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.